1 minute. You can tell John, and he can start recording. You can tell the audio room to start recording.
No, I'm not kidding. I got it down to a science. Like, I know when I have to stop working, when I have to start eating, and when I have to start driving.
Okay.
Been there.
Yep.
Okay, welcome everybody. I'd like to open this meeting and start with the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Bracco. You'll lead us.
Ready, salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and Malcolm would like to lead us in the invocation.
I just want to make a statement saying that as clergy and as the police chaplain and fire chaplain, we do not take this for granted. Thank you. We do not take this for granted. We feel like it's a wonderful privilege to be able to serve the council and to serve our city in this manner, especially our first responders. But I just wanted to say thank you and remind you and that it's a great service. So thank you so much. And it's a privilege to pray for you and to pray during this meeting. I was reading a quote before I came that I thought I would share with you. It says, every opportunity is surrounded by a problem. And let's focus on the opportunity. There will be many problems that you will face as a city council, as first responders that are in the room tonight, that are going to have to be solved. That's an opportunity. We can call it a problem and we get bogged up in the problem. We can get bottlenecked in the problem, but it's an opportunity to do something great, to do something new, to do something creative. And so let's be reminded of that. And as you make decisions that solve today's problems and hopefully prevent future problems. And with that, let me pray for you. Let's bow our heads. Lord, we recognize that we live in a world that's full of problems. We live in a city that has problems. Yet you have allowed the leaders that are in this room tonight, walking through every facet of life, that there are problems maybe sometimes that we cannot solve without your wisdom and your direction and your guidance. So I pray a blessing on this council, and I pray a blessing on their understanding and wisdom and the carrying out of these issues and the understanding and carrying out of these issues as we move forward as a city. Keep our city safe, watch over our first responders, bring them safely home after each and every shift. And we thank you for the privilege of serving in this community. And we ask those things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much.
All right, City Clerk's report on posting the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The posting of the agenda was conducted on Thursday, March 17th at 4:55 p.m. Councilmember Armendariz?
Present.
Councilmember Bracco?
Here.
Councilmember Hilton?
Here.
Councilmember Leroy Munoz?
Present.
Councilmember Marks?
Here.
Councilmember Tovar?
Here.
And Mayor Blankley.
Here. All right, under orders of the day, we have nothing to move around, so we'll move to employee introductions, and we have two new positions with the police department. Chief Espinoza, would you like to?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, and members of the public. I'd like to introduce our newest police officer, Nick Ferreira. Nick, you want to come up here? Nick was born and raised here in Gilroy and still lives here. Him and his wife. Nick is a new officer in the city of Gilroy, but previously worked for us as a CSO, community service officer. His favorite thing about working for the city is giving back to the city in which he grew up in. He's thankful to be able to serve his hometown and his community. Outside of work, he enjoys spending time with his family, watching sports, and he is expecting his first baby boy any second, literally. Nick Ferreira.
pleasure to meet everyone. I just want to thank the chief and the department for the opportunity. And being born and raised here in the city, I'm extremely proud to serve the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Madam Mayor, I wanted to come back to council and introduce a selection of our 2 quality of life officers. First, we have Officer Cameron Helms. Both of you guys come up, that's fine. Cameron was raised in Gilroy and enjoys being part of the community. He attended the police academy at Gavilan College and became a police officer in 2018. He has worked in patrol and has recently been selected as a quality of life officer, is looking forward to helping those in need and helping our community. In his spare time, enjoys hiking and spending time with his family and dog. Cameron Helms.
Thank you guys for this opportunity. I'm really excited to work, further with the community and help everyone out here. Thank you.
Thank you.
And before I introduce Corporal Bobby Griffith, this is their 3rd week, so they've really been diving into finding a best practice approach and visiting other communities that have similar teams. So that's one of their tasks, and I'll let Bobby, if he wants to, talk a little bit about what they've been doing just here in the last 2 weeks. Bobby's been involved in law enforcement for the past 27 years. During his career, he has had the privilege to work in many different positions, to include patrol, the gang unit, and the police activities lead director. He's been a school resource officer, a field training officer, a corporal, currently in our mounted unit team. He's a defensive tactics instructor and recently was assigned to the quality of life team. He's married to Christella and has 4 children, ages 13 to 26. Lives here in Gilroy and cares deeply about the city of Gilroy. Corporal Bobby Griffith.
Council, thank you for having us. Thank you to the community for supporting us. We're just, both me and Cameron are pretty empathetic towards the people. We want to help first and foremost. I think that's why we got into law enforcement. At least that's why I got into law enforcement. In the last 3 weeks, like the chief touched, I want to touch on what the chief said. In the last 3 weeks, we've been able to go out, work with different cities, and seen the programs. And hopefully we'll be able to bring that back to council to show what's going on in our county already. In the first week, we contacted about 17 individuals. 15 of those individuals were not in the system with the service providers. We've been working really good with Pit Stop and with Compassion Center and trying to, just build the bridges that we've either broken down or build on what they've had. And out of those 15 people, 1 of them was placed in the shelter. 2 of them were moved back to Mountain View, where they're from in the shelter. And a couple other were referred to housing. So it's been pretty successful. We get out and we talk to people that not even the outreach program can get to. So that's our goal, is to provide services to them and to help them. So we appreciate the opportunity and hopefully we can make you all proud. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we have 2 from finance. Harjot?
Absolutely. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and the community. I'm excited to announce 2 new appointments within the finance department. The first one is Maria Portillo to the position of Accounting Assistant 1. Maria, if you would, please join me. You may have seen Maria during your visits to the City Hall, particularly the finance department. She's been with the finance team in the part-time capacity for a couple years now, assisting in the finance front counter operations. Maria provides excellent customer service to both internal and external customers and is bilingual in English and Spanish, which is a great asset for our team as well as the community. Maria was excited for the full-time opportunity to come around and demonstrated exceptionally well that she possesses the experience, knowledge, and the skill set that's required for this very important customer service role. She's excited to become a full-time teammate and continue her service to the community and looks forward to learning new tasks and assignments in this role. Maria possesses an associate's degree in general business from Gavilan. Outside of work, she enjoys spending time with her family, especially her 2.5-year-old son, who loves going to the park to ride his scooter and bike. With that, please join me in congratulating Maria Portillo on her appointment to the Accounting Assistant 1 position.
I just want to say that I'm really excited for this opportunity, and I just want to thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, and I'm just as excited to announce the appointment of Vicki Ramon to the finance manager position. Vicki joined the city of Gilroy as a financial analyst not too long ago and was recently promoted to the finance manager position. Vicki is proven to be a great asset to the finance team during the short tenure that she's been with us. Her education, combined with her 18-year experience in accounting and finance, 13 of which being in a public sector, positioned her to be the best candidate for this role. Vicki enjoys being part of the team and looks forward to taking on this new opportunity and making valuable contributions to the department, organization, and the community. She'll be responsible for coordinating, developing, and managing the city's budgets in addition to providing oversight across some of the other departmental functions. Vicki possesses strong experience in payroll operations and thus has proven to be a valuable addition to the team, leading the implementation for the phase 2 of the ERP project, which is human capital management. Vicki holds a bachelor's degree in accounting, a master's degree in business admin, and a professional certification in human resources. Outside of work, Vicki enjoys spending time with her family, traveling, and exploring new places. With that, I'm excited to work with her in this new capacity. Please join me in congratulating Vicki Ramon on her promotion.
Madam Mayor, Council, and members of the public, I just wanted to take this moment to express my sincere gratitude for the previous role as well as this one, and I really look forward to serving the community as best I possibly can and being a good steward of public funds.
Thanks.
That's my introductions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, before I move on the agenda, I want to announce, because I'm trying to get in the habit of doing this at the beginning, if you're planning to make any public comments at this meeting, if you could please take the time to fill out a yellow card and hand it to our city clerk. That way we know how many people are wanting to speak, whether it's on an agenda item or not. All right? Item 2, ceremonial items. I have one proclamation to read for Fair Housing Month. Let it be known to all persons, the City of Gilroy joins the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing, and other housing agencies in celebration of the anniversary of the passage of the Fair Housing Act, which enunciates a national policy of fair housing for all who live in the United States. And whereas the Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, and national origin, and whereas the state of California additionally prohibits discrimination because of sexual orientation, marital status, ancestry, source of income, disability, medical condition, and age, and whereas the city encourages and supports fair housing practices and to heighten public awareness, the City of Gilroy pledges its commitment to improve housing options and celebrates the value of harmonious and diverse communities by promoting fair housing law. Now, therefore, I, Marie Blankley, Mayor of the City of Gilroy, on this 21st day of March, 2022, along with my colleagues on the City Council, do hereby proclaim April 2022 as Fair Housing Month. There you have it. Okay, moving on to item 3, board and commission interviews. We have Sergio Patterson. Is he? Oh, that's okay, great. We have one applicant to interview for one seat on the Parks and Rec Commission. I'm going to let City Clerk Ty you're giving the report?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it's a short report.
Very
Basically,
good.
it's just...
And then we'll be ready.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report is, we allowed continuing applications to come in for vacancies that were not filled in the previous February meeting. So we only had received one applicant from Mr. Patterson, and he's here for the Parks and Rec Commission with a term expiring December 31st, 2025.
Thank you. And we have 4 seats in total open on all commissions. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. So thank you for applying for this one. Okay. Well, then with that, Council, we'll bring Sergio up at the podium here because normally it would be down here, but the microphone's not working.
Sure, no worries.
So, yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for applying. I'll just ask you one general question, and then we'll see if the council wants to ask you anything else.
Sounds good.
Yeah, do you want to just quickly tell us just briefly, as brief as you can, a little, because we've all seen your application, so we know what's in there. Just whatever it is you would like to say here, and why you think you'd be the right person for this.
Yeah, I think first, I'm terribly nervous right now. I work at Silicon Valley. I've interviewed at Google. I've worked there. This is way more terrifying than all of those companies.
No.
I think just being here, but yeah, no, I've been a resident of Gilroy for, I think, 20 years. So just the opportunity to give back to the community and just be a part of this great city. That's first and foremost why I'm interested. And then I've got two little kids of my own, a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. So I think like parks and activities are pretty much most of my weekends. So the role made a lot of sense. I care a lot about the activities they're involved in, the people that are around them. So just having the chance to give back and kind of have an impact in that is one of the main reasons why I'm interested.
Thank you very much. And it's youth and adult programs, right? Recreation is the whole gamut there. Okay, council members, does anyone want to ask a particular question that I can? Okay, Councilmember Tovar.
Thank you, Sergio. Thank you for your interest, and thank you for your involvement within the city over the years. Just sort of reading your application, and again, I appreciate you applying.
Yeah.
You talked about sort of some of the goals, but what do you see if you were selected to be in the role? What do you want to see happen here in Gilroy?
Yeah, it's a good question. So one example actually happened today. So my wife and I were looking for swim lessons for our two kids. And for whatever reason, the first place we looked was CRC in Morgan Hill. I love Morgan Hill. I know they're like a sister city, but I think for me, for the future of Gilroy, we need more, like the first place I should look is something in Gilroy, whether it's activity, a sport, a restaurant. So like my future vision, to answer your question, is whatever the programs we can do, we need to start identifying where else is that happening? Is it just swim lessons? Is it other things? To where the first place I want to look towards is Gilroy. So I think like for me, that's one of the first things that comes to mind.
Thank you. Councilmember Romagnosi.
Just a very quick follow-up. Why was Morgan Hill the first place you thought of?
Good question. So we used to be members at CRC, and I think they do a really good job of promoting, whether it's through ads, social media. That's a big part of my background too, is just some of my day job. And I think just from like a brand standpoint, and the facilities are just really, really good. I think Christopher High has something similar, just not at that scale just yet. So I think right now it just comes down to the quality and the services they offer.
Okay, lots to work on. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's run by the YMCA. Everything out of CRC is done by the YMCA. Anyone else? Okay, well, please don't be nervous. Thank you. So we very much appreciate it. You have no idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Take it easy.
Okay, bye-bye. So that will be on our next meeting is when we will appoint, correct?
Yes,
or
Madam Mayor.
discuss the appointment. Yeah, okay, which is on April 3rd. 4th. All right. Next item is item 4, presentations to the council. This is the time for anyone who would like to speak on something that's not on the agenda. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have 2 speaker cards, and I would like to note that we received one public comment received ahead of time from Maria Aguilar via email, and it was you received it via email, and along with the public has it for their public consumption here.
Okay, has everybody turned in a card who would like to speak on this item, which is any item?
I received 2 public comment cards for 4.1. The first one is Cheryl Parks, followed by Ron Kirkish.
Right, I was asking if there are any others besides that. So we'll go with, you have up to 3 minutes if you would like to take 3 minutes.
I won't need 3 minutes.
Okay.
I'm Cheryl Parks, and I'm so excited about the grant money and our downtown, and we're finally gonna, improve it, and just so much excitement. Before I start, I have to say I've been going down there more, and our downtown's looking really nice. I love the planter boxes, I love the benches, I love the hanging plants, and I see more and more businesses in downtown Gilroy, and it just gives me hope. And I was so happy to hear about the grant. But my question is just, I would like to know, and I know you can't ask, but maybe it can be brought up later, who's in charge of the spending of the grant money? On the website, there was some expenditures that were concerning, and this is all new to me. Maybe I have no idea. Maybe things change. I'm hoping there's some wiggle room, because on the non-infrastructure items, to me, I just can't grasp $12,000 for a ribbon cutting event. I think that if we put that money there, we're really missing an opportunity to make a difference. That money could be better spent. And then I actually went down both alleys, because I know tomorrow there's a huge cleanup. 6 employees, and I know the benefits and all that jazz is going to be in there, are going to make $150 to clean it up. So I wanted to see the mess. And I saw 1 water bottle on Gourmet Alley, And then today I went down, because I thought it was just Gourmet Alley, I went down Railroad, and that's pristine too. So whoever the city has cleaning the streets, thank goodness for those business owners, they're doing a great job. It's clean. I don't see the thousands of dollars we're spending cleaning up nothing. So I'm hoping there's wiggle room. I know that we can make our city great. I just hope that there's some sort of, that you guys get, that the planning commission gets to have say in it, that the council gets to have say in it, that the public, I don't know, public maybe not, maybe you guys decide, but I just hope that this money is used because our downtown really needs it. And we're doing great things. I just want to see it used the way, I don't know. That's it. I ran out of gas.
Thank you. Okay, we have the next speakers taking.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Ron Kirkish, and thank you, Cheryl. I'm going to echo a lot what Cheryl has to say. I was fortunate to get a printout of the line items and the amount of money that is going to be spent on those. And there are some items that are kind of shocking, to me anyway. Maybe not to some of you, but to me they were. The first item, which isn't on here, it's on a different list, was the cost to pick up garbage. $150 an hour? Man, I'll take that job. You know, I mean, to pick up a water bottle for $150 an hour, that's kind of extravagant in my mind. Maybe somebody that who is doing this can explain it. Then another one is wayfinding signs. There's going to be 8 each at $10,000 each for $80,000. That seems extravagant. Traffic signs, 12 each for $1,200. That's more in line with a sign, I think, but still, that seems a little expensive. Then the big item is the common trash collection areas. There's 2 of those for $90,000 each for $180,000. Now, maybe that's what it cost. I don't know. You can educate us, the public. But I'd like to know, why does it cost $90,000 for 2 public area trash collecting systems? Explain it to us. I've talked to quite a few citizens residents in Gilroy, and they're kind of surprised about this too. So I'm not going to say that there's something wrong here. I just want to know how we can justify these numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I do not have any other speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
There is someone who would like, okay, you're welcome to come on up. You can. Yes. Thank you. We ask for speaker cards. They're not required if you don't want to do them.
You can just introduce yourself.
Thank you. I am Petra Macias. I am the mom of Michael Sunico Macias that they took his life at that Halloween party. I still want to know if what we can do to make this community safe and accountable for the people responsible for my son losing his life. And I still want answers, and I want things to be done to make this community safer for the children that are still here living in this community, to make it safer. I want to know what they're doing about the guns. What is the police doing to make it safer here? That's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Item 5, reports of council members. Councilmember Bracco.
Nothing to report.
Councilmember Armendariz.
Nothing to report.
Councilmember Marks.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended Gilroy Gardens Board Retreat last Friday, and then I also attended the Santa Clara County Habitat and Governing Board last Thursday, where they discussed the future of the burrowing owl in Santa Clara County. Chiclet births were down again this past year due to one of the main reasons of the drought, which caused a lack of grasshoppers, which is a main food supply for the owls. Mitigation measures being taken to increase births are building artificial burrows, planting native plants, removal of invasive weeds, mowing, spraying, and giving supplemental food to the burrowing owl pairs during the breeding season. There are also plans to release more burrowing owls into Coyote Valley and into Harvey Bear Park. It hopes that the owls will stay and not go out of those two areas to look for future food. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hilton.
Thank you, Mayor Blankley. From Silicon Valley Clean Energy, in response to the financial impacts of the coronavirus pandemic affecting customers, the residential electricity rate increases. The Silicon Valley Board of Directors approved $3 million in electric relief funding for low-income CARES customers. From April through November 2022, approximately 29,000 CARE customers will receive a monthly bill credit of $12.50 applied to their electric bills. The Silicon Valley Clean Energy Board of Directors authorized $17 million in additional program funding to double down on decarbonization program efforts to further reduce carbon emissions. The $17 million is in addition to the $6 million that is already committed to programs annually through the Silicon Valley Clean Energy budget. $2 million will be allocated towards multifamily EV charging assistance and provide incentives to the existing technical assistance program. $4 million for whole building electrification emphasis and funding to offer a menu of incentives. $3 million for local policy support to member jurisdictions to supporting EV charging low incentives for new construction and affordable housing. $3 million for permitting simplification, offering funding and technical resources for cities to simplify their processes and compliance to support EV infrastructure. And then $5 million for accessible financing, such as on-bill financing and testing out other approaches to increase accessibility of electrification programs for low-income customers. The Legislative Ad Hoc Committee for SVC recommended a support position to the full SVC board for AB 1944, which we'll be discussing here later tonight, and that was approved by the entire board on March 9th. Thank you.
Councilmember LaRomagnos.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of quick items. The Silicon Valley Regional Interoperability Authority will be meeting this Thursday, so I'll report back at our next meeting and what we discuss. Later today, we'll be discussing AB 1944. That's an assembly bill that the Cities Association of Santa Clara County has asked for feedback from all of its member or constituent cities. The Legislative Action Committee for the Cities Association is very busy, and they're very ambitious this year, so I will likely be returning with a lot of bills for us to be considering going forward. So everyone just kind of beware of that. And then finally, just an update from Valley Water District. I serve as our representative there. I think people are well aware, but this is the driest start to California's year ever in recorded history. So we continue to implore our citizens and our local governments to maintain discipline in terms of water conservation. Very important. Thank you.
Councilmember Tovar.
Thank you, Mayor. No report. Just a couple of comments. I want to first start off by thanking our staff members here at the city for all the hard work that you guys do. I know there's been a couple new businesses that opened up, and just talking with the owners, they said that the process has been really smooth, and the support that they've gotten from the city has been tremendous. So I want to thank you guys personally. I also, many of you may know, my mom recently passed away, and I just want to thank my fellow council members, city staff, and the community members for all your support during this difficult time. And again, from my family to you, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, my report. The GEDP, Gilroy Economic Development Partnership, has not actually met in quite some time, but the three initiatives that they are sponsoring and that City Council approved, I want to just touch base on all three of those because they are all in the works. So I think, as everyone knows, the Sharks, the plan we have for the Sharks to locate in our sports park, that is with, I'm just saying now, that's with legal. They're legal, are legal, trying to get to a term sheet that can be specific enough with parameters that we, the council, can then approve or not approve or whatever to go forward with something like that. So that's happening. And we also recently just received our letter of clearance, or whatever you want to call it, our certificate that we have successfully gone through the Surplus Lands Act with the property around Gilroy Gardens. So that means we are now free to move forward where that was stopping us before. And then lastly, of course, is downtown. And we just received this grant money that will be used in accordance with the grant. I want to clarify for people that the dollar amounts in that grant are the maximum allowed to spend in that category. They are not at all telling you that you must spend that much in that category. They are just maximums. And maybe Jimmy will speak to that a little more in his report later this evening. I think all of us are looking forward to the ad hoc committee, coming back because they're continuing to meet, and interested to see what their recommendations will be, whether it's, vacant building policies, paseos, murals. I mean, there's going to be all kinds of things that they have to bring to council to discuss. All right, sister cities, not much happening there because, of course, we're just now coming out of COVID, but I want everyone to know that with the relationship with Takamachi has been going on virtually. That's the only city that I know that we've had a continuous relationship with, even during COVID. And then Habitat Agency Governing Board, as Councilmember Mark said, I attended that meeting too, and the poor little burrowing owl needs help. Needs our help. And lastly, VTA Policy Advisory Committee. The thing I want to share there with the council is I think many of us know that the federal law, the bipartisan infrastructure law that was signed into law November 15th of 2021, I think we're all cities and localities are looking at that for federal aid with respect to infrastructure, whether that's bridges, roads, whatever it is. And so certainly some of that is available at the city level, and our TAC committee member is certainly on top of that. So we are looking. It doesn't mean we get it, because of course this is every city in the nation, and just like with other grants, it's maybe one city in California will get money, but we'll see. So I just want people to know that I don't know if it will be just one. I'm saying that we are on top of that, and I look forward to anything that we can do to try to get some of that money there. All right, that's my report. Future council-initiated items. Does anyone have something to raise? Councilmember Bracco.
Yes, it's been a while now since we closed the homeless task force, and we had a meeting at council level and directed staff with what we wanted to pursue. I would like to see if we can get a staff report back to where we stand on those. And also included in that report is, in the news it's been in a lot lately, liberal cities, San Francisco, Sacramento, Los Angeles, Venice Beach, they've said enough is enough, and they're cracking down on the homeless. So I would like to see if we get a report and see the legalities of that and stuff. Thank you.
Mayor, can I ask a follow-up question?
Of course.
Councilmember Bracco, and when you say crack down on homeless, I mean, can you maybe be a little bit more detailed on what you envision? Are we talking about services, resources, or somehow pushing them away? I'm trying to understand what you're looking at.
Well, what I've seen read is most of these, some of these cities are saying no more to this open-air drug use and panhandling and stuff like that. That's why I'd like to get a report from our staff on, can't always believe what's in the news.
Okay, so I'm going to turn to Jimmy and ask if that's something that's doable. I don't want to, I know I need to know how big of a task is that for you before I would suggest. Oh, and then hang on just a second. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report back on council on the status of the initiatives from the unhoused task force is certainly doable. We're in the middle of all that, so that's pretty simple. Okay. The other one's a little more complicated, a little more in depth, because we need to figure out exactly what other cities have done in the terms of crackdown, whether that's criminal prosecutions or such. And so I would have to get with the chief to figure out what exactly we would be bringing back, because there are some components that other cities have that we don't. So we could make it very simple report if that'll get the conversation started. But if you really want to know what has changed in the environment, that would take a little more work.
Right, or if it's just specific to, like you were saying, open air drug use.
Just a simple report.
Things like that out in the open.
I think
Okay, great. And Councilmember Armendariz, you had a comment?
Yeah, it was just a clarifying question, like, it's not illegal to be homeless, so what kind of report back do we want specifically, like the things that,
Use drugs and steal
right,
stuff.
but that's already illegal. So do we want to report back on how many folks have been arrested or cited for doing that stuff?
No, on what we, I wanted to see if we get a report on what we're doing now and what we can do to make things better for the community.
I would just say, because our quality of life officers just started, do we want to wait?
Yeah, we can wait a month. That'd be fine.
Well, if it's approved as a future council item, it's not going to come back next month anyway. So why don't we go ahead and do a thumbs up or thumbs down right now on this? That way we know if it's to come back, it's probably not going to be, it'll be 3 or 4 months, right? Before it'll come back. Okay? So I see 1, 2, 3, 4. I see everybody, 7. So great. Okay.
I have one item too, Mayor.
Oh.
If you're ready.
Yeah, I was going to move on. I didn't know we had a second one.
I'd like to propose that we adopt a resolution in support of the leaders and people of Ukraine as they defend against Russia's military attack on their sovereign nation and raise a Ukrainian flag for 30 days here at City Hall.
Okay. We have a flag policy, though.
Oh, I understand we have a policy, but this would not be coming from the applicant. This would be coming from the council ourselves. If people want to do that.
That makes sense.
Okay. I don't know where to go with that, just because I don't want to deviate from the policy that we just said. I don't want to get into that thing again myself. So if someone else wants to start the thumbs up process, feel free. It has nothing to do with supporting the Ukraine or not supporting the Ukraine. It's about the policy we just went through.
I share the same thought, Madam Mayor. I very much support the Ukrainian people in their struggle as well. But I think we're working through a process right now. And so I think if we want to discuss a statement, something like that, I think that's appropriate. But procedurally, I would prefer to hold off on any vote on flying a flag before we have our process formally in place.
Thank you. I would agree with that.
I would say that as council, we can, like Councilmember Hilton said, we can deviate from what is the process for the community versus something that we're initiating, and I would support it.
Okay, Councilmember Tovar.
Thank you. And no, I would be in support of it as well. I just want to make sure we follow the correct process. Maybe our city attorney, has this happened in other cities, and is this something that, like, what's being asked that city council can approve?
I'm aware that there's other cities that are passing resolutions and supports, but I don't think any of them are flying flags. I haven't heard of anything.
Morgan Hill is flying a flag, yeah, but that doesn't mean all cities are, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so.
Well, but before you take a vote, if I can see that probably flying the flag is not going to happen, how about just doing the resolution, bringing it back next month and put in a consent, a very short resolution in support of the leaders and people of Ukraine as they defend against Russia's military attack on the sovereign nation. How about that?
I'd be fine with that.
I support that.
Are you referring to very specific wording that you already have that you would like to, because the process for that would be to send it to, if you would copy me and send it to Ty, city clerk, and that way we can take it from there and get it in our next
I'll do that. I plan to basically just use mirror the same one that Morgan Hill did. If that should be a part of the future agenda item and everybody's okay with that, it's very short.
Okay, so are we all okay with a resolution in that regard? Okay, so you'll.
Thank you. I'll work.
Should I leave it that, or should we get our own resolution? Okay, yeah, no, I think it's okay for you to go ahead and set, well, if it's the same one as Morgan Hill, do you just want to get that yourself, Ty?
I'll write it up. I don't mind doing it and sending it to you and him.
Okay.
Because it's specific for Gilroy.
Right, but if you're writing it, it may not stay exactly like that. Okay.
I'm more than willing to work with you and Ty.
Okay,
it.
great.
Is that okay?
Yes, that would be wonderful.
All right. Thank you.
We can get that at the next meeting. Okay. Thank you all. Right, that was a thumbs up by everybody, correct? Okay, very good. Okay, consent calendar. Does anybody have anything that they would like to remove from the consent calendar? Okay, I would like to then open the public comment. Do we have anybody who wants to speak on consent calendar items?
I did not receive any public comment speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Then I will close public comment on that.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. So
I'll second.
Councilmember Bracco made the motion. Councilmember Marks is seconding it. So I think we can now all vote digitally. And that passes 7-0. Okay. Next, excuse me, next item is item 8, bids and proposals. We have none. Item 9 is public hearings. We have none. Item 10, unfinished business. Review draft pension funding policy and the utilization of savings from the potential pension obligation bonds. Harjot, you're going to give us this report.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, council members, committee members. My name is Harjot Sangam, the Finance Director. The item before you is review of the draft pension funding policy and utilization of savings from the potential pension obligation bonds. Some background on this, as you've probably been made aware over the years, city's unfunded accrued liability, also known as the UAL, for its California Public Employees Retirement System, also known as CalPERS, miscellaneous and safety plan has grown over 69% from $58.5 to $99 million. And as a result of that, council has been prompted to take actions to address the rising pension costs. Primarily, if you look at the graphic, that demonstrates our current UAL payment, and what we're really hoping to kind of target by the pension funding policy, as well as the subject of issuing the pension obligation bonds, is really addressing our next UL, through 2023 to 2031. As you see, they're expected to rise significantly. Some of the actions that the council has taken to address the issue has establishing and initially funding the Section 115 trust for pension costs. This action was taken back in November 2019. Council also held a study session in February 2020 where council directed staff to make prepayments of annual UAL amounts in July and transferring any realized savings to the pension trust. In addition to that, council discussed and reviewed and provided direction to staff to transfer up to 25% of annual year-end savings in the general fund to the pension trust, subject to review and approval of the city council. More recently, the council included in these as a strategic priority to explore refinancing of the pension obligations at lower interest rate via issuance of the pension obligation bonds. In January, the council granted initial authorization to proceed with the issuance and also initiated the judicial validation process that's required. So staff is returning to you with a draft policy that formalizes the current practice, incorporates the council's prior direction, and also recommends usage of the potential cash flow savings from the issuance of the POBs. As such, the policy includes that we will budget and actually make the actuarial determined minimum required contributions as determined by CalPERS actuaries, which the city currently does. We will prepay the annual UL payment in July, which the city did for the current fiscal year. We will review and transfer up to 25% of the year-end savings. We will establish that our target to achieve and maintain the funded status for both plans would be between 90 and 100%, and that we will review as budget allows and consider making additional discretionary payments directly to CalPERS to eliminate the ULs. And if the pension obligation bonds are issued, the policy establishes some guidelines to consider in structuring and issuing the POBs. A quick update on the POB analysis, and back in January when we came back and requested the initial authorization, we presented the POB analysis at that time. Since then, two major items of note is interest rates have increased, whereas we were forecasting between 3 to 3.5%. The all-in interest rate now in the current market is 4.06 to 4.21, and that drops the average annual savings to 1.7, between 1.7 to 2.4. Again, this is a waiting game as we kind of get through the validation process, which we're expecting to get through here over the next month, and will likely be before the council in May. So as a result of the changing environment as well, what the staff's recommending, if the council does approve the issuance, that, we take the pension related savings that this is going to yield and put it right back into the pension Section 115 trust to bolster the trust and also to mitigate against, future UALs, and also establish a target contribution, because we'll have some significant amounts that we can actually make an impact, that we set the target of $12 million, which is roughly equivalent to about, 20% of the general fund reserves, or expenditures, sorry. Again, as next steps, we would bring the policy back for formal adoption at the next city council meeting. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we're going through the validation process. We expect that to be complete over the next month, so we'll likely be before you with either a recommendation or not on the POBs in May. And if the POBs are not recommended or approved at that time, our existing elements that the council has previously directed us will continue to, apply those as well. And with that, our recommendation again tonight is to receive a report and provide a direction, if any, on the policy in itself.
Thank you very much for that report. All right, I'm going to go to council first with questions, and then we'll have a public hearing. The public will be able to comment after. Councilmember Bracco.
Yes, I say good report. I like your idea of saving the money, because as we know, there will be shortfalls, as there always has been, and that way we can keep from getting right back in the same boat that we're in. So thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Leroy Munoz.
Arju, thank you for the report. With regard to the decision on the pension obligation bonds, that's a decision we'll make in May. Is that correct?
That's correct. With the current schedule, yep. We're expecting to come back in May.
Understood. Okay, so that gives us a little bit of time to kind of watch where things kind of play themselves out in terms of interest rates and everything else. Is that?
Absolutely, yeah. As I indicated in the narrative, the markets are volatile at the moment, as I'm sure everyone's experiencing. We're hoping by that time, things become a little bit more stable. And but again, we won't know until at that time. So we're continuing to work with the financing team, and kind of keeping our eyes and ears out. And we'll probably likely give you an update on the market environment at that time of what we can expect.
I think that's very prudent. I think just right now, with everything going on, emerging from the pandemic, and then certainly the war in Ukraine has really just set everything in chaos. So having a couple of extra months just to kind of wait to see how this plays makes a lot of sense. So coming back in May is something I'm supportive of. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this item, these are my comments now. These items are trying to give staff direction as to what to do if we approve the actual refi, which we can't do until we know what the interest rates are at the time. And unfortunately, it's not as good today as it was 2 months ago, and even 2 months ago wasn't as good as it was 2 months before that.
Absolutely.
So that's just the way it's been going. But I'd like to make sure I understand this, and that is in the chart that you had up there, I don't remember which one it was, but the peak where we're expecting the highest point, and that's the current payment. Right, that's the amount of money we'd have to pay. That's not the UAL, right?
That is the current UAL payment in that year. So
the current payment on exactly, and that's expected to be about $12 million.
So slightly, actually,
so it's not really
right
that
above,
graph, but exactly. So 12 million is how high our current payment would need to be. It's a lot of money, right? And we would like to get that 115 trust to a point that it has at least that much in it, so that we can fund the highest known year. And keep in mind, everyone, that this is just to ensure the promised benefits are funded, right? The benefits that people are expecting, that people are basing their lives around, right, are funded. And so it's not okay to not take action when we can. So, okay.
Yeah, and I believe I also mentioned in this report as well, as you'll hear it in the next mid-year, is as we're kind of approaching, we know CalPERS did great as far as investment returns in fiscal year 21, but as we're kind of approaching that mark and knowing where markets are, there is a concern about CalPERS, maybe getting lower than expected returns or maybe even negative. So having this policy in place and being able to contribute to the pension trust, I think obviously shows a strong commitment from the council that they're serious, as well as it'll help, when we get down to the POB decision, is having this policy in place is viewed very favorably by the rating agencies as well as the purchasers of our bonds.
Right. And even if I understood correctly too, even if we got as much benefit as is the maximum that on today, the high end, the 2.4 million, it would still take us 6 years to accumulate enough to make that peak payment that is not that far off. Right. Ugh, these numbers are astronomical. Okay. Any members of the public wishing to comment on this?
I did not receive any speaker card, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Then I will close the public comment period. And we're just receiving this report, but you want, how do you want direction?
If this is good, the policy is drafted is okay with the council, then we'll bring it right back for formal adoption at the next council meeting.
All right. So do you want a formal motion, Ty?
If preferable, yes.
Okay. So would someone like to make a motion then? Okay. Councilmember Bracco made the motion, seconded by Councilmember Leroy Munoz. So we can all vote on the screen. It's asking for the seconder. So somehow Peter got the first, I guess. That's okay.
Can you repeat the motion for the mover and the second?
Yes, the motion was made by Councilmember Bracco and seconded by Councilmember Leroy Munoz.
Thank you.
And it passes 7-0. Thank you. All right, I guess you can stay there. Next item is receive fiscal year 22 mid-year budget update, approve adjustment of select positions as recommended, and adopt a resolution updating fiscal year 22 and 23 position control list.
All right. Again, good evening, Mayor, council members, and the community. My name is Herjot Sangha. I'm the finance director for the city. The item before you is to receive a fiscal year 22 mid-year budget update, approve adjustments to select positions as recommended, and adoption of 2 resolutions, one updating the position control list and other amending the budget in the liability insurance fund. Some background, the city adopted the current biennial fiscal year 22 and 23, sorry, it should say 23 biennial budget on June 7th. And last received a update on the general fund forecast in November when the fiscal year 21 preliminary year-end budget report was presented. So this, the report as drafted does cover a period, a 7-month period from July 1st, 2021 through January 31st of 2022. Focusing in just on the general fund revenues. For fiscal year 22, the general fund budgeted revenues are $61.1 million, and as of January 2022, $34.8 million have been received, or otherwise approximately 57%. Just looking at some of our key revenue categories, sales tax, which is the general fund's primary source of revenue, is budgeted at $18.9 million. We have collected $8.3 million as of January. And looking and talking to the city sales tax consultant, we are expecting the sales tax to come in $1.4 million above the budget amount, or about $20.3 million. And again, this is a strong indication that the economic recovery is continuing, and for sales tax in itself, we do project the sales tax revenue will likely exceed the pre-COVID levels. The second category is a property tax, which is budgeted at $17.3 million. We've received $9.1 million. And in talking to the county tax assessor's office via the quarterly meetings, the city of Gilroy is expected to receive the full budgeted amount for fiscal year 22. For the utility users tax, which are basically assessments against the value of energy and telecommunications, such as gas, electric, cable, and phone charges, the city has received $2.9 million of the budgeted $4.2 million. Given that this revenue is tracking slightly ahead, we do expect the actual revenues for the fiscal year 22 in this category to come in higher than budgeted, probably in the range of $200,000 to $500,000. Looking at the franchise tax, which the city receives from primarily 3 franchisees types, which is gas, electric, and cable and garbage refuse. The city has received about only $400,000 of the total budgeted 1.8, and that's primarily due to some of the operators remit it annually versus either quarterly or semi-annually. Our large payment is typically from PG&E, and they remit it around April of each year. So hence why the smaller amount. For TOT, the city's revenue thus far is $700,000 of the total 1.4 budgeted. Again, that reflects about 50%. However, knowing that this is a quarterly remitted, not all of the second quarter payments were received as of the end of January. So we do expect that TOT will likely exceed the budget as restrictions related to the pandemic are lifted across the county and the state. And I'll just slide down to the other revenue category there. Which primarily consists of departmental charges for services, intergovernmental revenues. As of January, we have received 76% of the total budget, and the notable large payments in there are Gilroy Fire Department's reimbursement for the fire department's participation in the deployment of the strike teams to the wildfires there, and also a revenue recognition of the first payment, which was deferred as a result of the fiscal year 21 year-end audit. Just focusing just on the development-related revenues for public works and community development, they are included in this aggregate category, but overall they are tracking budget with about 52% of the amounts having been received as of January. Focusing in on the general fund expenditures for the fiscal year 22, the general fund budgeted expenditures are $56.9 million. As of January, the expenditures were $32.5, or about 57% of the total budget. Overall, you'll see that the general fund is tracking the budget, and most departments are within or below target for this period. The fire department, you'll note, is slightly higher than the typical expenditures for this period. And they have experienced an increase in overtime to maintain adequate, staffing levels for its operations, while we continue to recruit for our firefighter positions. However, we do expect that the department will likely be at or within budget by the end of the fiscal year. This chart is an updated general fund forecast. Couple items to mention here again, as I indicated earlier, this does reflect council's year-to-date budget adjustments, that the council has approved, as well as the updated sales tax information. The first highlight there is our previous forecast had us forecasting a negative operating margin for fiscal year 24 onwards. With this change, as you can see, the operating margin is now positive. As far as the minimum fund balance requirements there, you can see on the bottom, we're required to maintain at 30%, as a fund balance as a percent is tracking to be above 30%, and with ARPA funds, obviously, it's slightly higher with that. While this is a welcoming outlook, there are, as we've kind of talked about tonight, there are causes for concerns, especially around inflation, which also impacts the city because we procure materials and services as well, in the market, as well as the impacts of potential investment returns that CalPERS might experience, as we kind of inch closer. So those are those are unknown at the moment. So we are kind of monitoring to see, how long the inflation component will last, and if we believe that it's time for us to warrant adjustments to our forecast, then we will likely come back to council to make any adjustments. Okay. On the non-general fund revenue side, we have about $60.7 million budgeted, and we have received about 30.5. Most categories are tracking slightly below. Again, these are all very dependent in nature of when, on the timings of when these are received, like special revenues or, grant funded. Sometimes we'll receive, grants that are recorded in a certain period, and so forth. So if the council has any questions, I'm happy to answer that. But overall, I'll leave, the non-general fund revenues at the high level at 60.7 versus the 30.5 that we have collected. On the expenditure side of things, again, we have about $103.6 million budgeted and only $26 million spent. Primarily, again, this relates to when the expenditures are either occurring or when they're encumbered. Mostly are related to either gas tax related, infrastructure related items or capital projects. As we know, kind of these capital projects that are out in the community kind of tend to take time to develop, so we do expect some of this funds to start encumbering here as we come out of the winter rainy season, like the pavement maintenance project, if you will. On the sewer side, we do see a reduction, again, $43.6 million versus the $8.4 million that we have already incurred. The amount is slightly lower because the actual budget includes our expenses for the scrub plant expansion. So if you were to back that expense out for the capital project for the plant expansion, then we're tracking right on target, about 52% or so. So that's why that number looks a little lower. Okay. Right. Also included in tonight's mid-year update are a few adjustments. One is for personnel. So we're recommending converting about 4 items here that are before you, 4 positions. So first one is converting the part-time EOC coordinator position to the full-time emergency services and volunteer coordinator position, converting a part-time deputy city clerk position to a full-time, converting a crime analysis, records, property, and evidence manager position to a police crime analyst position, converting a senior police record technician position to a police record supervisor. And the reasons are outlined in the staff report. Happy to talk about those if need be. The second item before you is a adjustment to the city's liability insurance in the amount of $350,000 for the current fiscal year. This is, again, due to the increase in insurance premiums that are higher than budget, of course, with everything going on in the insurance markets as it relates to wildfires and COVID and so forth. It's impacting the city's premiums as well. So we are recommending an adjustment for, again, this is just for fiscal year 22. We will likely experience a similar increase in fiscal year 23, but we'll plan to return to council likely at mid-cycle budget update and include that adjustment at that time. Again, the key takeaways for the mid-year report are that the general fund revenues and expenditures are tracking budget. Sales tax revenue, again, as I indicated, is projected to exceed the pre-pandemic levels in the current fiscal year. And as far as our forecast goes, previously we projected a negative operating margin from fiscal year 24 onwards, which is now positive. However, I have to disclose that there continue to be concerns around inflation as well as any kind of investment returns related to CalPERS, which might impact our future pension costs. So the recommendations before you are receiving this budget update, approving adjustments to the select positions as recommended, adoption of a resolution updating the city's fiscal year 22 and 23 position control list, and last but not least, adoption of a resolution amending the fiscal year 22 budget to appropriate $350,000 in the liability insurance fund. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Harjo. Excellent report. And council, turning to anybody here for questions first? Okay, Councilmember Hilton.
Do you want me to put my name in there?
I'm sorry?
Do you want me to put my name in there?
No, that's
okay.
Fine.
Thank you, Harjo, for the presentation. Can you talk real briefly about the business license? how we're at 118%. Is that, I want to hear more in depth, and maybe Jimmy can knock on it. Is that a trending sign that we're doing well in expansion of businesses, or is it current?
It'll likely be a combination of both, but if you refer back to the staff report that in the narrative section, I indicated that the business licenses are strictly tied to the timing of the annual renewals. There's both of the renewals occur primarily in the first half of the fiscal year, so the revenues, certainly folks start renewing their business licenses early on in the fiscal year, so all the revenue gets recognized. However, there are businesses, again, for those that renew in November, December, there is a component they pay for one full fiscal year. So at June year end, we do a accounting treatment called deferment of revenues for the portion of the period that's going to go into the next fiscal year. So likely, while it states 118%, yes, there's going to be some deferment that's going to happen, so the number will likely come down. However, I'll again state that, as we're kind of coming out of the pandemic and those more folks are, getting back into the business action, we are seeing increased applications.
Okay. And then my other question was, and I brought this up last year when we talked about the position control when we approved the budget, and that it's referring back to a study that the police department did on public safety dispatchers and the need to add additional public safety dispatchers. So what I'm asking, I asked then and I'm asking it again, is does staff still feel that we have adequate public safety dispatchers to cover the increased calls for service and needs for both fire and police?
Unfortunately, I wouldn't be the best person to answer that. I would have to refer to our public safety department heads to answer that question. And we can likely follow up, after we have a conversation. Jimmy, anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, excuse me, Mr. Hilton, we will be returning to council as the mid-cycle, and we'll be looking at priorities for positions. I can assure you some of the adjustments we've made with dispatchers for compensation that have been out of the labor cycle have been a reflection of our need to retain, and also awareness that the market is not real good for those kinds of positions. But to further answer your questions, do we have enough? Most likely we'll have to look at that because we know the service calls are going up, and so I can expect you'll hear something at mid-cycle if our police chief has identified that as an area he feels is a priority for staffing adjustments.
Thank you, and I have one final comment, and that's just to cause concern that we're already at 68% of the fires budget, and I know you said that has to do with overtime, but if recruitment is a hard thing, then maybe staff should look at incentives to hire firefighters here. 2% at 57 is one of the worst in the state. So recruitment based on the retirement, the package that we're giving is not comparable to anywhere around us. However, there are agencies that do incentives to try to work around something that doesn't have to do with retirement, but whether that's a signing bonus. There's departments doing all sorts of creative stuff, and I'm pretty sure that our HR is familiar with that as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, those kinds of questions aren't for our finance director. We have to all be party to those kinds of negotiations. That's what all of that is part of negotiations. I would like to comment on the operating margin line. So I don't know which slide you had it on, but it's packet page 57. And I just want to call attention to anybody who's looking at our packet or anybody who's watching the meeting that the operating margin is really what shows how we're not negative, right? And that would be the number that in the first red box, the highest red box, if we were in fiscal year 24 and if we ended with that $700,000 there, that would be the number that back on the pension obligations that we are trying to ensure are funded for our people when they get there, that would be the number that up to 25% of which we could contribute also into the 115 trust, again, to help ourselves with this escalating liability. Okay, thank you. So anyone else from council who wants to say anything before I open the public hearing? Okay, do we have any public comments?
I received one speaker card from Ron Kirkish.
All right.
Hello again, Mayor, City Council. This was a good report. It shows that we're not in, maybe we're doing better than other cities in up and down California. And we're still in the middle of trying to come out of the COVID disaster. So as we come out, I expect these numbers to be even better. The reason I'm up here, though, is because, as you know, I'm very, very interested in the cameras, the license readers, and the other cameras. And if we have extra money in the budget, I would hope that that would become a priority, because as we all know, Morgan Hill has done an excellent job in other cities, especially San Diego, in solving their crimes, and not 10 years from now, but immediately using those. So I hope we can, with this money that we got coming in, hopefully more, that we can focus on prioritizing those for our community, for our police department. Thank you.
Thank you. No others?
No others, Madam Mayor.
Okay, closing public comment, and Harjot, back to you. I have one other question if no one else does, and that's on the insurance premiums. Part of your report, again, packet page 57, that our premiums are going up, and that is a direct result of what?
So if I may, I'll ask our risk manager to come and address this question. But what I understand is the insurance market in itself is very volatile, especially during volatile markets as well. And there's been other increases that the insurance have had to pay out, especially things related to wildfires and so forth, and other claims as those have gone up.
Okay.
So.
If when you speak, Leanne, if you could, what I'm asking is anything specific to Gilroy? Or is this just the general?
General.
Okay.
Generally, the insurance market right now is just hardened, and premiums are up just about everywhere. So the cost for the city, as part of being in the Municipal Pooling Authority risk pool, our share of the premiums is going up because the overall premiums for all the agencies in the pool are going up. And that's just due to increased number of claims and the severity of those claims, and just the things like Harjot just mentioned with respect to wildfires, hurricanes, COVID. All of those things have an impact on the insurance market. And so we're not immune from that. Right. And so we're experiencing increase in our premiums.
Right. And not because of specific things happening in Gilroy. It's all these things that are affecting all.
Correct.
Okay.
Premiums went up for most every agency in the risk pool. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good for everybody to know when there's a lot of talk in the community about the need, why insurance is what it is. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay. If there aren't any other questions, then I wonder if we could do, if anybody would like to make a motion to receive the fiscal year 22 mid-year budget update, approve the adjustments to selected positions as recommended by staff, and adopt a resolution updating the fiscal 22-23 position control list, and adopt the resolution amending the city's budget to appropriate $35,000, shouldn't that be $350,000? Yeah, in liability insurance fund.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. All right, the motion is made by Councilmember Tovar, seconded by Councilmember Armendariz, and we can all go ahead and vote. And that passes 7-0. Okay, it's a good day for finance. Thanks. Okay, thanks, Harjot. Okay, 11.2. This is consideration of support, neutrality, or opposition to Assembly Bill 1944, which is teleconferencing by members of legislative bodies from locations that they do not have to do not have to disclose for the public. Okay, Bryce, you want to give us this report?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. As Council aware, but some of our members of the public may not, the Brown Act governs legislative body meetings for transparency and public access. During COVID, through both the governor's executive orders as well as recently with AB 361, some of those protections for transparency and public access were modified in the interest of protecting the public health. AB 361 made some further modifications on top of the governor's order, and that's set to continue through to January 1st, 2024. Assembly Bill 1944 seeks to make some of those changes ongoing. Specifically, if the legislative body elects to allow for teleconferencing, it does 4 key components. One is that the address for a teleconferencing member that's not in a public place does not necessarily need to be identified in any of the noticing or agendas. Second, the location of the member does not need to actually be accessible to the public from where they're participating. All open public meetings must provide a public video stream, and that stream must provide the ability also for the public to address the body remotely through an audiovisual or call-in option. And then finally, the law is very specific about the video streaming that must be continuously delivered via the internet to be viewed by the public without downloading onto their personal computers. So the bill is currently in the committee, specifically it's in the local government committee right now. We do know that there may be further changes that may happen as it's deliberated and proceeds through the process. This is ultimately a policy decision that we're asking of council if council supports, opposes, or is neutral to AB 1944. But it's also important to note that even if the bill passes, City Council can take certain implementation determinations. So there's definitely a discretion in council as far as provisions around its implementation should it be passed. So the recommendation for council tonight is for providing direction regarding its policy stance on the bill, and provide the direction to council if not only if it's in support or opposition or neutral, but also if there's any letters of support or letters of opposition that council may wish. And that completes the presentation. Happy to take any direction.
Thank you, Bryce. Okay, well, this is on our agenda because Councilmember Lerone Munoz says that needs an opinion from us for Cities Association. So, Councilmember, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll kick it off. Again, this is, I will report back to the Cities Association the will of our collective council here, our collective will of the council, I should say. So again, every other city in the county is considering the same issue as to whether this is something they want to support, whether they don't want to support this, or whether they want to abstain from making a decision one way or the other. A couple of items that came up for consideration as we talked about this at the Cities Association meeting a couple of weeks ago is, does something like this inadvertently encourage public officials to use the virtual meetings more than they otherwise would? And the problem or the complication with doing that is that there is a legitimate fear, I think, that was expressed by many people on the call that we had, was that actually reduces citizen engagement in the meetings, and it reduces citizen interaction with the elected officials. So, for example, we have our meeting here tonight. We have members of the public who come in, they say their piece, they look us in the eye, we look them in the eye, we hear them, and they can kind of, we can all see each other and participate together. Again, the fear is that if this were to be an option, that members might simply say, you know what, it might be easier. I'm not gonna, turn up in person, and then we'll just do this virtually. And so I think I share the concern that we want to encourage members to be as available to the public as possible and to show up to the meetings whenever at all possible. I think there's also a concern that was raised around the tech capabilities. That is, when one member of a body is going remote for that meeting, so if 6 of us are here and then one person were not here, that one person we're meeting remotely, we would, as a city, have to provide online viewing, online capabilities for people to call in, all those kind of things. I know that's been a little tricky in the past. I know doing it via Zoom when all of us were remote was sometimes tricky. And so I wonder if we have the tech capabilities to fulfill that part of our obligation if we were to do this. So those are just some of the concerns that were raised in the City Association meeting, and I share those concerns as well.
Thank you. One other thing, just because I was at one of the meetings that I had to attend for you, the closed session part too, that was also a concern.
That's correct too. Yeah. So how does that work for closed session when you have, a group that's present here, maybe 6 or 5 of us here, and then a couple people elsewhere? And what does that mean for security as well, and maintaining the confidentiality of that closed session as well?
Okay. Councilmember Armendariz.
Thank you, Mayor. Pardon me as I collect my thoughts on this because there is a lot going on here. My primary concern is first that it's really early in the legislative process, and we know that bills go through so many different iterations as they go through the legislature. Do we have any idea from the authoring legislator where they would pull it or at what point they would stop? Because I can see like removing the ability to for the public to access the address or to participate via the alternate address that the council member would be at. That concerns me. So I would support that. But the first point about it, the address not being noticed, I think that would take from the spirit of the Brown Act and limit public the public's access right to us and that information. I don't have a problem with that one as it stands. So I'm just wondering, are there certain parts of this legislation that the authoring legislator has noticed that they would no longer, like they would pull the bill?
So the bill author was present at the Cities Association meeting 2 Thursdays ago. He did, that question was not asked. I think strategically too, sometimes they try to keep the cards closest to when they would pull or not. So unfortunately, we just don't know.
Okay, because I do think that the public should know, like they deserve to be noticed where we will be legislating from, either as individuals or as a body. And so that would be my issue with this. Like, I think it is against the spirit of the Brown Act. And, but in this day and age with COVID, right, and the pandemic, are we coming upon another surge? Are we going to need to have access to virtual and call-in options? Absolutely. And I think we all saw that during our time meeting virtually, we did have a great number of participation online and through our call-in options. And those are the kind of points of this that I would support. But again, I couldn't support not allowing members to know where we're broadcasting from. So.
Thank you. Councilmember Bracco.
Yeah, I'm a no vote. I think giving politicians this avenue is just ripe with fraud and abuse. I believe the citizens have a right to know where their council member or mayor or whoever is at the time of the meeting and who's in the room with that person. And so I'm a no vote. Thank you.
Councilmember Tovar.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm going to express many of the same concerns. And for me, I think something that was mentioned earlier is, we need to be available to the public, obviously, in the participation, but the transparency portion of it is very important to me. Because, being on council now 6 years, I think I've done maybe 1 or 2 call-ins, and I was stressed out over getting all that information, where I'm at and all that, making sure I was available if anybody wanted to show up at wherever I was, calling in from. So I have a big concern regarding that portion of it, so I'm also going to be no against this.
Thank you. Councilmember Hilton.
Thank you, Mayor Blankley. Just address a couple of things. So closed session, for the last 2 years, closed session we've done with a lot of sensitive topics over Zoom, and has not been an issue at all. And just remember, over the last 2 years, we have not put our addresses where we are located on Zoom as well. But yet, we've been successful over the last 2 years. I wouldn't say that we have not been successful or others aren't. And we currently allow teleconferencing in already. We just got to let the city clerk know 72 hours ahead of time. They put the address where we're there. That's something that's already current. That's not on the table. I do want to just give another flip side of this is that, this is also for those regional meetings that are happening. And I'll give one good example of why Silicon Valley Clean Energy decided to support it, is that SVC meets at 7 p.m. in Cupertino. So that's requiring everybody to drive across, commute wherever they're coming from, drive across, and the meeting could be as short as a half hour or as long as like 5 hours. So, for me, as a husband and a working dad, that actually allowed me to be able to stay at home and not have to worry about commuting. So think about those regional meetings. I understand that people want to see people here, but just remember about those regional meetings that could apply. And this is a local control bill. It'll only pass upon majority vote of that board. So just take into that account as you're giving a no or a yes. Thank you.
Councilmember Marks.
Well, I'm a no vote on this. I feel it's very important for people to, as council members, to be present for the public to come in and talk to us. It was very hard over the last 2 years when we had to meet via Zoom. There was no bonding of the council. We need to work together as a group, and we need to, I think it means a lot to be able to see someone eyeball to eyeball when you are discussing different topics. I agree with Councilmember Bracco. I think there is a bigger chance of fraud in something like this. You don't know who is in the room with one of the legislators as they're trying to make a decision. The same goes for any closed session topic that we are talking about. So to me, this is not a good idea, and I'm a little suspect on why anyone would bring this forth. I don't know if it's really for the convenience of those that have to travel long distances to attend a meeting, or are there other ideas behind it? So thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to make my comments then. Everyone else has had their opportunity. So the part that bothers me the most, I think it's been said, is that council members can basically be hidden from public view by doing this. You don't have to disclose where you are. So if it's going to reach, I would love to be able to attend virtually the regional meetings and not have to drive for VTA stuff, for Caltrain stuff. And there are times when I can still do that under the current law. I still have to say where I am. And it can only work if if you still have a quorum of those within the jurisdiction present. So current law to me is sufficient. This is giving legislative individual elected officials the opportunity to be out of the public view while they are deliberating. And that to me is the most important time when you're talking about transparency, to be in public view. People should be able to see who's in the room, who are you talking to, are you texting, who's influencing the decision that you're about to make that is in the interest of the public. So for that reason alone, I cannot support this, even though it is correct that as written, it is, even if it passes, it will then be up to our city council to decide if we're going to implement it. So even if it passes, it doesn't mean that it necessarily applies to us until this council approves it, but we are here to talk about whether or not we're trying to support it or be neutral, and so we would want to keep that same sentiment, whatever it is we intend. We'd say tonight. So those are my biggest reasons. As far as the public being able to participate virtually, that's a separate discussion that we are going to be having, right? And it'll be explained to us what equipment we need, what are the issues, what are the costs, and we'll be able to analyze that. That's separate from this. This here is just a way of allowing council members not to be hidden. I'm going to call it hidden because that's what it is. You don't have to say where you are while you are on the dais. Okay, so if that's going to go to the public, okay. No, go ahead. But I need to go to the public. Yeah, I haven't opened public comment yet.
One speaker card from Ron Kirkish.
Okay.
Good evening again. The exception versus the rule. I believe that the rule should be that you come to City Hall where we can all get together as a community, together. There are exceptions. If a person is on vacation, things like that. We've seen this in the past with other people. I'm not sure which ones, I can't remember which ones, but there were people that called in. There was a video camera available. So there is that capability. But that should be the exception, not the rule. If we make it the rule, then we probably won't see some of you guys forever. And that's not what we want, I don't think. Thank you.
Thank you. And no other comments?
No other public comments, Madam Mayor.
Okay, then closing public comments, and Councilmember Laura Munoz, you're welcome to have the mic now.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to make a motion that we as a council report to the Cities Association that we would oppose Assembly Bill 1944.
Okay, is there?
I think I just did wrong, because if I say no,
Yeah.
No, I'm in accordance with your motion, right?
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilmember Laura Munoz and seconded by Councilmember Bracco to oppose, to send a vote of opposing
Yes.
to Cities Association. And I think in the staff report that you're also planning to send a letter to League of California Cities, is that right? Okay, we'll do that too. Okay, everybody vote. Okay, so that passes 6-1. All right, thank you all. Item 11.3. Introduction and first reading of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Gilroy adding sections 10A 15 through 10A 18 to the Gilroy City Code relating to host liability for fireworks. Bryce.
Excuse me, Mayor, Council.
Okay.
As council will know, the fireworks regulations the city enforces are contained currently in the City Code Chapter 10A. The liability currently is placed on the individual that actually ignites the firework or utilizes the firework. This does present some challenges, though, in finding the individual responsible during the 4th of July celebrations during illegal fireworks. We have also noticed that there's a trend in illegal fireworks increasing during the 4th of July period. So the ordinance seeks to place liability on the property owners or renters as a method to try to enhance enforcement capabilities and attain better compliance. So host liability is broadly similar to the social host liability, which is also currently inside Gilroy City Code for loud parties and alcohol use. So currently illegal firework crimes, most of the PD enforces are misdemeanors, which means they must be committed in the presence of law enforcement officers or enacted by citizen's arrest, which rarely ever happens. So what this ordinance would do is establish an administrative citation for on the hosts of events or any illegal fireworks that are launched from their properties. This will make it easier to identify specific locations. It's easier to identify specific locations versus an individual where an aerial firework originates from. The host is also broadly defined in the ordinance, so whoever has control of the property. So an owner, somebody who rents the property, or anybody that's taking responsibility for a gathering on a public or private property would be considered a host under this ordinance. Additionally, the host does not need to be present or have prior knowledge of the illegal fireworks in order to be held responsible as the host of that property, or of that illegal discharge. There is one exception in the ordinance, which is a host who initiates contact with law enforcement to assist in removing any person who is violating or going to violate that provision. In the ordinance, there's 2 tiers of penalties. The first violation is $1,000. Second and subsequent violations will be $2,000. And again, there's also an additional provision for administrative cost recovery. So if public safety has to respond out to the property, up to $500 in cost recovery for their time or equipment would also be assessed against the property, or against the host, I should say. And like the social host ordinance, there is an appeal hearing process as well if they are issued a citation. So they go before an administrative hearing officer should they decide to appeal. So staff is recommending 2 actions. First, after City Clerk reads the title of the ordinance, a motion to waive further reading of the ordinance. And second, for council to introduce the ordinance, adding Gilroy Code sections 10A 15 through 18 to chapter 10A to create and enforce a host liability for illegal fireworks. That completes the presentation. Happy to address any questions or comments.
Thank you, Bryce. Can you just define host for purposes of this here? Just, I mean, because you know, you have a property owner, you have a tenant, you have a person who lives there, a person who planned who bought the fireworks. I mean, whatever it is, how do you define host for this purpose?
Yes, so it is contained in the draft.
Mayor, if I may add to that as well, just in addition to that question, when we talked about host does not have to be present. So, for example, say I don't know that when my kid has fireworks and they're going off and I had no clue it was happening, but I'm still liable. Correct?
Correct. And so the term host is defined as in 3 areas: an owner of any private residential or non-residential real property in the city, or any person who has the right to use, possess, or occupy public or private property under a lease, permit, license, rental agreement, or contract, or any person who hosts, organizes, supervises, officiates, conducts, or accepts responsibility for a gathering on public or private property.
Thank you. And is that the exact same definition as the social host ordinance? Are they consistent?
Maybe slightly different. Let me pull it up. I believe this one may be different.
If they're different, I'm just wondering why. Is it just because we've come up with a better thing and we just have, okay, it's an update. Great. Okay, that's enough. And are the fines in here consistent with what the social host ordinance fines are, or is this also new and improved?
This is generally consistent. So the social host fines has 3 tiers. So the first violation is $250. Then it goes up to second violation $1,000, third violation $2,000. So we're basically essentially establishing the upper 2 tiers as the fee structure for this.
This one's starting at 1,000, and the social host has 2 tiers below that still. 250.
One tier below that. So 250, and then they have the social host ordinance is 1,000, 2,000.
I see.
Fireworks is starting at 1,000, and
Got it. Social host goes up to 1,000 after the first offense.
Correct.
Got it. The way it's written right now. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, Councilmember Marks.
Yes, thank you, Bryce. I like it. I think hopefully this will reduce a lot of our illegal fireworks, but I just have one question. Let's say you go away on vacation and someone comes and is shooting off fireworks in your front yard. How is the law going to address that? Because you had no idea the person was there, and I can see this happening in some instances. Are you still responsible?
Correct. And those instances are why we'd have the administrative appeal process in there.
Okay.
So they'll go before an independent appeal hearing officer and lay out their case for why they weren't involved. It wasn't any relation of mine.
Okay.
It wasn't anybody I knew. Some person came onto the property, and they would have to present that at that administrative hearing.
Okay, so that'll be built into this ordinance.
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, because in that example, somebody's actually trespassing.
Is
what you're saying. I mean, they're not,
exactly.
They're trespassing, and so yeah. Okay. Okay. Anyone else before I go to the public? Okay. Do we have any public comment on this?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Before we decide if somebody has a motion, I'm going to ask, Jimmy, would you mind reminding us all what came of the 8 people who were arrested who we actually got and had proof of, and all the things that people go through to actually get 8 people sent to the DA?
I think just a general summary in my discussions with the police chief is that the majority of these cases, folks will do community service or something of the like, as opposed to going through the entire judicial system. So essentially it becomes more of a nuisance enforcement where they have to give up some of their time. When we went through this last year, council said we'd like to have some tighter tools, some better options, and we felt going to their pocket might be a little more of a discouragement than having them serve community service. So we'll see. But that's generally how most of those were disposed of.
Thanks. I remember you actually gave us a very specific report a couple of months ago about exactly what happened to the 8. And if memory serves, some of them did pay fines. It did go to their pocketbook, and others did hours of community, certain number of hours, neither of which, not the fine nor the hours, was anything large. So it was very discouraging. Okay, I see Councilmember Armendariz is up on the screen, so I'm going to go to her next, and then Councilmember Tovar.
It states that this ordinance will aid in keeping our police officers safe and will reduce the number of physical encounters with community members that may be agitated and/or unruly. Can you tell me how that will reduce? Like, won't they still have to go to the property and speak to someone?
Yes. One thing that is very dangerous about this situation is there's typically a lot of alcohol involved, and sending an officer into a cul-de-sac with 40 or 50 people is what we're trying to avoid. If we can identify the property owner, we actually don't even have to go and do any investigation because the fireworks are obviously coming from the property. So that would be one instance where they wouldn't actually have to go and deal with an individual.
It doesn't have to be in the moment.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, Councilmember Tovar?
Thank you. Two questions, and has to do with both the questions that were asked. So going back to Councilmember Armendariz' question, so, a lot of times residents have block parties, or in the streets, and they're doing fireworks on the actual street. So how would we identify the owner or the host if you have folks from all over the neighborhood and it's not actually on somebody's property?
That is one of the numerous challenges of enforcing a fireworks ordinance.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the middle of the street, everybody's going to run and nobody saw anything.
Right. No, and I bring that up because, as you know, it happens. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. Part two, and to follow up with the mayor's question in regards to, what happens if, someone's caught besides the fine. But I think if this does get passed, I think it would be important for us to send out a clear message to the community that we're not going to take this anymore because folks, July is right around the corner, and even if we approve this, if there's no word or no announcements or no, we're going to be doing A, B, C, and D, people are going to continue doing what they're doing. So I think it'd be important for us, depending if it passes, that we get the message out sooner than later. Thank you.
Okay, but this ordinance is not specific to 4th of July, right? It's illegal fireworks that happen any time because we all know they go on all year long for all kinds of reasons. Right. Okay, so we've opened the public hearing and closed the public hearing. So would anyone like to make a motion to, hang on. Oh.
Yeah, Mayor, you can make that one motion. You can, after the clerk reads the title of the ordinance, someone can make a motion to, you can do a motion to waive further reading and introduce it.
Okay, so yes, my notes say that I guess it's time for you to read the title of the ordinance, motion to waive further reading of the ordinance, right?
Yes.
Okay.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Gilroy adding Gilroy City Code Sections 10A.15 through 10A.18 to Chapter 10A to create and enforce a host liability for illegal fireworks and illegal use of illegal fireworks.
Okay. So now someone needs to make a motion
to approve that.
Well, yeah, I'll make a motion to approve that. Yeah.
Councilmember Tovar made a motion and
seconded by.
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Councilmember Marks.
Thank you. Councilmember Armendariz?
Yes.
Councilmember Rocco?
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Leroy Munoz?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar?
Yes.
And Mayor Blankley?
Yes. All right, that passed unanimously. And now I need to do Part B, correct?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
All right, so now I'm looking for a motion to introduce an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Gilroy adding Gilroy City Code Sections 10A.15 through 10A.18 to Chapter 10A to create and enforce a host liability for illegal fireworks and illegal use of legal fireworks.
So move.
Okay?
Second.
All right, that was moved by Councilmember Tovar and seconded by Councilmember Bracco.
Councilmember Armendariz?
Yes.
Councilmember Rocco?
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Leroy Munoz?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar?
Yes.
And Mayor Blankley?
Yes, that's unanimous. Okay, 11.4. Approval of funding agreement with Valley Transportation Authority for US 101 10th Street Highway 152 Interchange Project. Gary Heap, take it away.
It's a mouthful. It seems we're doing these presentations in pairs tonight, so I get the next two.
That's right.
So good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. I have for you this evening the item there for the approval of this funding agreement as indicated. Providing some background, on November 8, 2016, a 30-year half-cent transportation sales tax measure was approved by the voters, known now as 2016 Measure B. On January 23, 2019, the VTA began implementation of that program after several years of court battles based on various things. Measure B includes several programs of interest to the city of Gilroy, including the Highway Interchange Program. The three projects listed within the city of Gilroy area include the 101 10th Street Highway 152 interchange improvements, the 101 Buena Vista interchange project, and the US 101 25 interchange project, which is just outside Gilroy and really managed by the Management Partners Group. The project we're talking about this evening with the funding agreement is for the 10th and 101 interchange, as well as Pacheco Pass there. It's 10th Street to the east, or to the west of the freeway, and Pacheco Pass to the east there. So the project itself will be from the limits of Chestnut all the way over to Camino Arroyo. Measure B initially allocated $1 million to the Buena Vista interchange when it was initiated for pre-design work. In August of 2020, the council requested that the VTA transfer that funding from the Buena Vista interchange to US 101 10th Street because 10th Street was a higher priority for the city at that time. In April of 2021, the VTA Board of Directors approved that transfer of funds, so we now have $1 million for pre-design in the 101 10th Street interchange project. On November 24, 2021, the VTA Board of Directors, after reviewing several project applications for highway interchange funding, approved a prioritized list of projects and funding for that program. 12 separate projects were approved for funding, and it's exciting to announce that Gilroy received $7.655 million for design and environmental phase of the 101 10th Street interchange project. Prior to design, though, however, we need to do an initial phase called the PID phase, the Project Initiation Document. The VTA will use the $1 million from the pre-design money to pay for that. The city's contribution towards that effort will be $120,000, and that'll come out of TIF funds. Once that PID phase is complete, then we can use that $7.655 million for the design and environmental of the project. So the funding agreement this evening is for that initial PID phase. Once we move into future phases, we'll be bringing back additional funding agreements, and this funding agreement is attached to your staff report this evening. So with that, staff recommends approval of the VTA City of Gilroy funding agreement for the PID phase of the US 101 10th Street SR 152 interchange project. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. All right, council members, questions of Gary before I go to the public? Wow, must have been good. I know. All right, do we have any public comments?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, and no public comments. So back to council. If there are no questions on it, then.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right.
Second.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Bracco, seconded by Councilmember Armendariz, to approve the funding agreement between the City of Gilroy and Valley Transportation Authority for this interchange project. Okay, we can do digital voting on this. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, 11.5, approval of an Memorandum of Understanding between City of Gilroy and the Transit Agency of Monterey County, which we often call Tamsy, regarding improvements near the Gilroy train station. Gary.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I have for you this evening this item here for discussion. The city has been working with the Transportation Agency for Monterey County, Tamsy, and the Valley Transportation Agency, VTA, regarding the improvements near the Gilroy train station associated with this Tamsy project. The Tamsy project itself will extend the Caltrain service from the Gilroy train station, which is currently the end of line, and extending that down to the Salinas train station. Improvements outside the rail corridor include improvements to the train station property itself, which is why the VTA is party to this agreement, and then also improvements to the crossings at 10th Street and Luchesa, which is why the city needs to be part of this agreement. This is a set of plans, which I don't expect you to read or understand, but this is the 10th Street crossing, so you see there's a lot of work being done in this area, and then you've got the Luchesa crossing down in this quadrant here. The MOU specifically lays out the responsibilities and commitments among the agencies to support this project through completion. The city's commitment will be to maintain the improvements constructed in the city right-of-way as part of the project, which will then be transferred from the agency to the city once it's complete. The agreement will also identifies the need for the contractor to obtain a city encroachment permit for the right-of-way work, and that encroachment permit will go into additional detail regarding hours of construction, traffic control plans, and the like. The MOU has been reviewed and approved by our city attorney's office. That's important to know. Improvements in Gilroy for this project include improvements at the 10th Street crossing, paving and striping improvements, as well as a connection of the sidewalk on the south side of 10th Street between Monterey and the Alexander Station. Right now, there's an asphalt pathway there, and it's not very conducive to pedestrians. This project will put in a concrete walkway and connect that location. Also looking at storm drainage improvements to treat the stormwater coming off that very small portion of additional hardscape being generated. At Luchessa, you're looking at paving restoration, again, just outside the crossing area, and a little bit of striping improvements associated with that additional paving. Next steps for this project is fully funded. Tamsy's been doing a lot of good work over the last several years to get this funded. So they expect to advertise for construction in May of 2023. It's about a year's worth of construction, and they expect that to take place between August of 23 and August of 24. So the recommendation here is to approve the Memorandum of Understanding between the City of Gilroy, Tamsy, and the VTA regarding improvements near the Gilroy train station. And that concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. I have a question, but does anyone else? Okay, my question is, these improvements are, like you said before, at the 10th Street crossing and Luchessa crossing. Right. Nothing is actually being done at the the Gilroy train station, right?
That's correct. There's some work being done at the train station. There's some track work that's being done, but that's all within the VTA property.
That was my question, because I thought the tracks that are there are actually Caltrains. Those storage tracks, those are Caltrains, and then the tracks themselves are Union Pacific and Caltrain. So where does VTA even come into this?
The VTA work, there's additional work being done on site. There's stormwater improvements that are being done on site and some additional paving and striping of improvements on site.
Okay, so that's where it comes in, not the tracks itself. Okay, thank you. That was my question. All right, no others, then public comment. Anybody from the public?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, then I'll close the public comments and come back to council.
Motion to approve.
Okay, that motion was made by Councilmember Armendariz and seconded by Councilmember Tovar to approve the MOU between City of Gilroy Transit Agency, Tamsy, and VTA regarding improvements near the Gilroy train station. And that passes unanimously. Okay. Gary, you're done, right? Okay.
He's out.
All right, item 12, City Administrator's Report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As we're moving along here, I have several things I'm going to address that I didn't originally intend to, but we have some time, and so I'll be quick, but I have quite a bit here to go through. First, I want to let the public know that the Housing Element Update community meeting is March 31st. That's a virtual meeting, and you can find that on our website in the Zoom link, and we will have a second community meeting in May, and that will be to solicit input on the city's housing element, which is being updated after the approval of the general plan update. Council should see the housing element update later this year after these two public meetings and after work with staff. So March 30th from 6 to 8 on Zoom. Second, I want to read something from Rochelle Bedell concerning the fentanyl town hall. Rochelle's not here this evening, and I asked her to write a summary, so I'll read it verbatim, but it's some good information. The fentanyl town hall was held on March 15 and was youth-led in partnership with the Gilroy Unified School District. Presenters included Christopher High School young health professionals, Supervising District Attorney Edward Liang, and Gilroy Fire Chief Jim Wyatt. Presentation topics included fentanyl one-on-one, current county and city stats, recognizing signs of overdose, addressing risk for substance abuse, and the use of Narcan. Additionally, a testimonial video was shared highlighting the dangers of fentanyl through sharing the firsthand experiences of local Gilroy families. The virtual town hall was attended by 205 persons with a Q&A session that lasted over 20 minutes. The town hall is available for viewing on the GUSD YouTube channel. I do want to thank the collaboration with the school district. I also want to thank Rochelle, who really put a lot of passion into this campaign and really ran with it. And as you can tell from the numbers and the people we reached, it was a very successful meeting. And we have some legacy materials that we'll be sharing with the Unified School District kids and videos and things like that that we put together. So I want to thank Rochelle very much, and thanks for council for giving us that nudge that they were hearing from the community that we needed to address. And so I think that was a success.
Excellent work.
I do want to mirror what the mayor said earlier about the Surplus Lands Act. We did receive an actual letter from the state, which is very important for us to have a letter saying we have complied with the components of the Surplus Lands Act out at the 536 acres over by Gilroy Gardens. So we are free to move forward with developing the property. And so we will re-engage the vendors that we had discussed before and work on a plan and bring to council and the community in the upcoming months for some options on what we can do with that property. But we are on our way to do something with it. So we're excited about that. I met last week with Heather Roach, who is the general manager of the Gilroy outlets, and talked about the future of the outlets and in capital investments, and was assured that it is a property that is very valuable to the mother company, and that we should be expecting to see some improvements in landscaping and signage out there and some other things. So I did want to relay that. Had a nice talk with her, and just to make sure that they know we're watching them, and we appreciate the sales tax revenue that they generate, and also appreciate that they're going to be willing to put some dollars into their property, because as you know, it's time. It's been out there for a while. The last thing I wanted to discuss was earlier in the conversation, we had some questions about the downtown grant. And I want to kind of answer a few of the questions about how this is working and why there may be some confusion. A couple things to remember. It's a $3.9 million grant, of which $3.7 million is for construction. So this is basically a capital project that the state is funding. And of that $3.7 million, most of it is in asphalt, sidewalks, curb ramps, sewers, and gutters. So it's not the most exciting grant, but it is one that will provide the infrastructure for what we hope will be the foundation for more excitement. And so the part that gets a lot of discussion this evening was the talk of paying somebody $150 an hour to pick up trash. That's not quite accurate. We typically pay between $23 and $32 an hour for a maintenance worker. The amount you're seeing is a state rate. And when the state calculates a rate for any type of labor, they put in the truck, they put in the gas, they put in the city manager's time, they fill in everything. It's one of the few times we actually feel like the state pays us back for what we're doing. So I know it looks a little crazy that there's $150 per hour, but I can tell you in the long run, we don't come out ahead with the state reimbursements. The other thing I will tell you is that the majority of things you see on here are what the state has allocated us not to exceed. I promise you we're not spending $12,000 on a ribbon cutting. We might spend $200. We're Gilroy. We're not going to have a brass band out there and all these other things. We're pretty basic. And so we are allowed to spend up to $12,000. And if we don't spend that money, we could most likely put it in another area. So, you know, I understand the numbers, and I'm willing to have any conversation with anybody about this grant, but don't take everything by the face here. It's a little bit of a government paperwork that I can understand can be confusing. The last thing in this as well is who gets to decide who spends the money. Well, $3.7 million in construction projects all have to be approved by the city council. The $200,000 probably not going to come to council because it's cleanups, and it's mostly within my authority, but anything over $35,000 has to be publicly bid and approved by the city council. So that's where the checks and balances is. We do have a web page on the city website that shows all the projects and plans, and I'll make a commitment to put an FAQ sheet on there too if I get more questions, or I will do it regardless if I get more questions, kind of laying out what I said there. But if you ever see anything like that, I know most people have my email, and we'll be happy to answer that or sit down with you if you want some further questions answered.
Thank you, Jimmy.
That completes my report. Thank you.
You might have offended Daryl over there, though, saying that sewer lines and water lines aren't exciting. I mean, they can't, I don't know. They might be very exciting. Anyway, I want to thank everyone who had any part in the, I'm just going to call it the fentanyl project, right? Rochelle, school district. I have seen that so many times in so many places between what the school district has posted and what the city has posted on many different sites, and the videos I've seen are incredibly moving, especially those from the parents. But I just think it was a very, very, very well done and to the point thing that I hope lives on for a while for people to be able to see. Okay, city.
Maria, I had a question for Jimmy.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Of the $200,000, Jimmy, you said that's earmarked for cleanups. What kind of community input or community participation are you looking for with those?
Right. We actually were allocated, I can't remember, there's several $1,000s for community outreach and community input. So that's part of the process. And that's part of the ribbon cutting as well. It's part of the public communication. We're required to have a ribbon cutting. So there are a lot of steps the state requires us to have to make sure that the public has input. I just don't have the specifics to give you, but they are in there.
Okay, thank you.
And that they get credit probably, huh? The ribbon cutting, right? Yeah. Okay, Jolie, do you have a city attorney's report today?
No report.
No report.
No report.
Okay, so then with that, I will, do you want to give the spiel? Okay.
Yeah, so the spiel. So pursuant to the city's open government ordinance 17A.11.3, we are going to go into a closed session, and I need to let the public know that the purpose for that is to assert the attorney-client privilege, and because discussion in open session would likely and unavoidably prejudice the position of the city. So do we have, and then we need to take public comment on the closed session if there's anyone that wants to comment.
All right, so do we have anybody who wants to comment on this?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, seeing no public comments, we'll close that. I will announce the time is 7:59 p.m. And let's take a 5-minute recess. And come back at 8:05.